Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. We focus on food security, emergency preparedness, and self-reliance. And today's video goes to all three of those. Jim and I are working very hard on organizing our freezer, our pantry, and our refrigerator to align with what I've talked about before, having 60 days of meals with the integration of the freezer, the refrigerator, and the pantry. And we're having a lot of fun doing it. It's such a good idea, and we're actually quite excited about the possibilities. The other day when we were at Costco, this little Lodge fry pan, it's an 8-inch skillet, was $19, which is a pretty unheard of price. The only price that it beats is for those of you that go out and search in secondhand stores and garage sales and get things for just a couple of dollars, and how I envy that. That is so smart to shop that way. So this is its maiden use today. We are going to make roux, R-O-U-X. It's French. And it is roux, and it is a cooked mixture of fat and flour that is used as a basis for sauces and gravies. Now, the reason that I want to do this is that I have just purchased on Amazon this little ice cube tray. This is the most amazing thing. Look at this. and this lid. Now, I'm not putting this in our Amazon store until I have completed using it one time. I'm quite intrigued by it, but I want to see how it performs. We only put things in our Amazon store that we have used and tried out and really like. So I just right now think it's quite a novelty, but I won't put it in the store until after we've used it to be sure that we think it's worthwhile. These little compartments hold 2 tablespoons each. So what I'm going to do is make a batch of roux. It might take 2 batches of roux, and I'm going to fill these little ice cube trays with 2 tablespoons of roux, put it out in the freezer, and then we're going to take them out of the tray, put them in a plastic bag and keep them frozen. So when I want to make gravy or a cream sauce or anything like that, all I have to do is go out to the freezer and get 1 little cube of roux, and it is ready to go. So that is such a great way to be prepared to make sauces and gravies. So what is roux anyway? Well, it's a cooked mixture of equal parts of fat and flour. The most common ingredients are butter with the flour, but you can use any fat. At Thanksgiving time, you can use the fat that comes off of your turkey, and you then add flour to that, and then use the turkey drippings to make the gravy. And oh, what a delicious, smooth gravy is made when you make gravies and sauces using roux. Now, what happens with roux, as it is cooking the fat with the flour, the fat coats the starch molecules of the flour and makes it so that lumps don't form. So isn't that a great idea? So the procedure is to melt the butter, add in the fat, and then you stir it. And you stir it with a wire whip or a whip. And you just cook it on the top of the stove. There are 3 types of roux. There's the light or white roux, there's brown roux, and then there is the dark roux. And it all depends on how long you cook it. I pretty much stick with the light. You cook it for about 3 to 5 minutes until it puffs up and they are thoroughly mixed and the flour is cooked. When you make gravy with just throwing flour in there, it has that pasty flour taste. But when you use roux, that flour taste is completely gone. And instead, you have this smooth, creamy sauce or gravy that carries the flavor of the liquid along with the butter or the other fat. And that's what I'm going after, is that I don't like the pasty taste of the flour. So we're going to go ahead and proceed. We're going to cook some roux. We're going to put it in here. And then we're going to leave it in the freezer for several hours. We'll come back late this afternoon, pull out 1 cube, and see how much gravy we can make with 2 tablespoons, because I'm not quite sure. I always just make my flour mixture flour and fat mixture by looking and by my experience, but I'm wanting to take some measurements today so I know how much gravy at what thickness I can make with the 2 tablespoons. So here we go. We have everything all set. We've got the flame going, so I'm going to put the butter in and melt the butter. I love this little butane burner. I can use it in my kitchen. We do have a carbon monoxide alarm set up right here. And going along with that, we have our back door cracked just a little bit. You can't use propane in the house, or safely, not safely. I know a lot of people do it anyway. We don't. I just use this butane. It is safe for the kitchen. It's used all over the world, actually, in kitchens, particularly in third world countries. But it is a great off-grid option for those of us who are concerned about emergency preparedness. I'm going to get a knife and cut that butter. So we have a couple of these stoves. We keep one in our storage, and we then store butane, and we watch for sale prices on those little canisters of butane. So here's the 1/2 cup measure. I'm going to get my 1/2 cup of flour because you do equal parts. Some people say to do equal parts by weight. Others say do equal parts by volume. As you can see, I'm using volume and not weight. I've always used equal parts by volume, and it's worked just fine for me. If you prefer to do it the other way, that's okay too. All right, now I'm just going to sprinkle the flour in. We are going to be cooking this flour right down in the fat. So the fat can coat the starch molecules, make a smooth mixture. And for a light roux, you need to cook it for 3 to 5 minutes. For the medium brown, it's 5 to 6 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, and then for the dark brown, you use 8 to 15 minutes. The longer you cook it, the less thickening power it has. So that's another reason that I like this light roux. Now see how it's puffing up? That's what we want. We want to see it puffy and bubbly. And we want to cook that for about 3 to 5 minutes. Now this light roux is so good for things like white gravy, and then you thicken it with milk and add sausage, and you have sausage gravy for your biscuits. It's great for cheese sauce, for mac and cheese. You thicken it with milk. You can thicken it with whatever meat drippings you have, and then add extra broth if you don't have enough drippings to make the amount of gravy that you want. This is just such a handy little condiment to have on hand and frozen so that you can be prepared. With this much roux, I could make gravy for an army. That's why it doesn't take very much roux to make a good amount of gravy. We're going to be experimenting with that once we bring those frozen cubes back into the house. Okay, now notice the puffiness is gone and it is starting to turn a little bit darker, so I'm going to shut down the heat. Remove it from the heat and move this off to the side. Okay, so you can see that this has turned just a tiny bit brown. This may be a little browner than I usually use, but it will work just fine. All right, so now we need to get it into here. So, what's the best way? Probably just with a spoon, that's what I'm going to try. So I'm going to leave this flat. And I don't want the mixture to separate like it's doing right now, so I'm stirring it back up. All right, this is going to take a little bit of time. I'll bring you back when I have these ready to go out to the freezer. We got 7 compartments, which is almost half of this 15. And while we were off camera, Jim and I decided that the wise thing to do is to freeze these and see how they work out before we fill the whole thing. So that's what we're going to do. Also, you can see the fat has separated from the flour. I've not had that happen before, but I've never freezed them before. I've always then just gone directly to making the gravy. So there are some unknowns here that we're going to have to investigate. So this is my little quarter sheet pan. It's all modeled like this because it's aluminum, and I wash it in the dishwasher. So because the flimsiness of this ice tray, I'm going to put it on this little tray, and then I'm going to pinch the lid in place. Okay, that worked out just fine. And I'm going to go put these out in the freezer. So we will come back. If these freeze by the end of the day, we'll be back by the end of the day. I feel sure that they will. And then we will try it out probably for a dinner meal that Jim and I will have. So we will see you later this afternoon. Well, it is 7 hours later, and I think that our roux is frozen solid. Let's double check. Oh, yeah. It's very interesting. Take a look at that. There's a layer of butter on the top that did not get absorbed by the flour. So that is the classic recipe of roux, 1-to-1. After this morning's video session, I went back online and did a little bit more research, and everybody is saying 1-to-1. If you use a tablespoon of fat, you use a tablespoon of flour. And there are other recipes out there. I found one that was 2 parts fat to 3 parts flour instead of the 1-to-1. So I think it is kind of up in the air, but we're going to try this. We are having beef stroganoff tonight, and so I'm going to make a brown gravy. We have had quite an eventful day. In the 7 hours since we saw you last, we've been all the way into town, and we have a restaurant supply store that is fairly new to town. And boy, oh boy, did we get some fabulous things to help us with organizing our freezer and getting our meals in preparation for having 60 days of meals with the integration of our freezer and pantry and refrigerator. We're very excited about this project, and we'll be bringing you more about that later. Right now, we're going to test this roux to see if it can go in this little bag and then in this freezer bin and be part of our ingredient supply as we move forward with our 60-day plan. So I'm going to turn this on. It didn't go on.
It didn't go on. There we go.
Okay, so this should just melt because it's got a lot of butter in it. And then what we want to do, we don't want it to get too hot. And frankly, I don't know if this is going to be enough to thicken for stroganoff tonight. I need to use 2 cups of beef broth. So I am going to get that ready right now. And we don't want the roux to be boiling hot when we stir this broth in. We want it to be warm, but we don't want it to be as hot as it was when we were making it. We just want to ensure that there will be no lumps. So this will be a little bit of a brown gravy that will hold the beef and the mushrooms and the sour cream for our stroganoff tonight. Okay, so it is melting and it's taking now the flour with it. So I want to be really careful because I don't want this to burn. And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking I'm going to need more than one. So this is 2 tablespoons full. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I really don't know what the amounts of the ingredients are when I make gravy like this. I just do it. This is not going to be enough, I know already, so I am going to put another one in. This little thing is working really well, this ice cube tray. So here goes our other piece of the roux. It takes just a couple of minutes to get this melted. And I'm going to start adding the liquid just a little bit at a time. I need to stir with my right hand. So this is the big test to see if it's going to work or not work after having been frozen, and whether or not it's going to be convenient to have it done this way, or whether I should just make it every single time I make a sauce like this. So I have about a cup in. So far it is not doing any thickening. All right, it's boiling and it is thickening up. And I do need 2 cups of this, so it will be nice and thick, which tells me I'm going to need 2 more of these cubes. All right, so here we have our gravy for the stroganoff. By the time I get the meat in here and the mushrooms and the sour cream, it should be just about the right consistency. Now I'm just going to taste it. It has no seasoning in it, no salt, no pepper, anything. Oh my goodness. It is velvet. It is so smooth. And I don't taste any of that pasty flour taste that I usually do. Oh my gosh. I'm really, really pleased with this. Look how smooth this is. And the great thing is I didn't have to worry about any lumps. So that was about 2, 4, 6, 8 tablespoons of this roux for 2 cups of broth. So that gives me an idea of about how many I need to put in a pan when I'm making gravy. I'm going to make up tons of this and have it ready to go. This is a beautiful color and it's so smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And so I'm going to put the remaining 3 right here in this bag. Gosh, these come out so easy. Wow. I'm very happy with this now that I have used it, so I will be putting that in our Amazon store. And this will go outside in our freezer. This is one of my condiments bins where I'm going to keep things frozen and just ready to use with a meal. So I would say I'm very happy. This was very, very successful for me and my time and my prep. Once I get going on a meal, I love to have little shortcuts like this. And so it will greatly aid me and will ensure that we have the ability to make gravy throughout the entire 60 days that we're working on with the integration of our freezer, refrigerator, and pantry. So thank you so much for being with us, and I hope that you try this. It's really a lot of fun. I quite enjoyed it. So we will see you very soon for another video.